Good morning, everyone, bright and early. Welcome to our Sheet and Keep session today. We are happy to be here and show you how to utilize these applications. Today, we will demonstrate some of the skills that may be covered in the units and exam. This is a supplemental course that will provide participants with a visual demonstration of the skills. These courses are to assist in learning about the certification tasks. They do not replace the units in the Google Teacher Center. Learners must still complete those lessons and unit review prior to the exam. Make sure that you please limit the questions in the chat to those related to the skills being discussed. And please avoid answering to each other, even if you know the answer. Please leave it up to Joe and I to answer those questions because they can be missed if you guys, other questions can be missed if you start answering to each other. At this point, if you also, please make sure that you turn off your microphones. Your camera is optional. You cannot disclose any specific items in regards to the certification exam, just to make sure that everybody understands that. Google requires everyone who take the exam to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Therefore, we cannot share specific exam details. If you do that, failure to those guidelines will be as a result of us removing you from the session. So just to make sure, we cannot discuss a specific task on the exam. Okay, so we are about to start. I'm gonna give it up to Joe today. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm Joe. If you don't know me, I'm the high school tech integrator. I already did see a question I just want to address as far as the cursor and having yellow circle. Unfortunately, I cannot do that for this presentation because the only way to do that is to install an extension, and that extension will slow down my computer and kind of hinder the presentation, if you will. Okay.
Someone is at the front door.
All right.
Turn off your microphones.
Yes, please. If you haven't already, if you could please mute your microphones. All right. So we're going to dive into Sheets. And I think Google Sheets is an interesting application because it has a ton of capability and power behind it. But I feel like a lot of us, including myself, are limited in how much knowledge and experience we have using it. So to get to Google Sheets, you are going to click on the Google Apps button on ClassLink, and we can just click on Google Sheets. From here, we're going to land on the Sheets homepage. I'm going to zoom in a tiny bit here. All right, so we have a few options, right? They do have templates that you can choose. And the template gallery is a combination of just the general templates shared with from Google and Racine Unified School District templates. But for the purposes of today, we are going to go with a blank sheet. Now, while this is loading, I should mention this session will be hard to try on your own while following along. We are going to be sharing this recording along with resources after the session. So it may be in the best interest if you just watch what I'm doing and then try and, copy that or, work through that after the session on your own. Okay, so now we're on the Sheets, a blank spreadsheet. Up on the top, just like all the other Google apps, is where we can title it. So I'm just going to go with example. And when we talk about Sheets, the first thing we want to know is the difference between rows and columns. Columns are these letters. So A, B, C, D, those are examples of a column where the rows are numbered, okay? The rows go horizontal and the columns are vertical. To enter in text, let's say I want to enter something in A1. I'm going to go ahead and put entering. Now, if I want to go to another cell, I can go ahead here. So you know what, let me do this instead. Last name, first name, And then for C, I'm going to go ahead and type in email. When I'm done typing in a cell, you can either click off of the cell to enter in that information, or you could hit the enter button on your keyboard. We have some text now in each cell. Go ahead, Natalia.
Can you make sure that, do you have the enlarger cursor?
I don't have it enabled right now because it slows down the browser too much.
I have noticed that too. And then,
Yeah.
can you show everybody how to actually do the spotlight? So in case that you do not have your screen in spotlight, you guys
Sure,
are able
absolutely.
to see.
Yep. So for those that are not seeing my screen, or at least not seeing it as large as you would like, if you go down, you hover over your Meet window right now, you hover over the bottom, and you'll see these three little dots on the bottom right corner. And then you're going to just go to the change layout. And from here, you will pick Spotlight. That way you will always be able to see the presentation that's being shared. And no other windows will pop up. All right, of course. Now we have our text entered. Now we're just going to kind of run through some of the formatting options we have. And a lot of them you're going to find are similar to those with Google Docs. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these cells. To do that, I can click row 1. So I just click number 1, and it will highlight everything. And I want it to be bold because it's going to be my header. They're going to be my headers. And I want to center it. So to center it, I go to this icon right here, this horizontal align, and I'm going to put it in the center. The other options you have are to align how the text looks on a vertical aspect. And then finally, text wrapping. What this means is if I have more text than can actually fit inside the box, it's going to just go through into the next cell. Whereas if I were to change this text wrapping, I have the option to actually have it wrap around and stay in that cell. So again, these are all just different things you can play with. Personally, I'm a fan of text wrapping, so I'm going to go with that. So highlighting an entire row is something you can do. You can also highlight an entire column. The other thing, if you want to merge two cells, so let's say I want first name and last name to be together, right? So I can highlight the two cells by holding the Shift button and clicking over the cells that I want to highlight. And then to merge those cells, it's just like on a table on a Google Doc. You look for this icon that says merge, and then we can hit merge. And for this, we only have one option. It's merge horizontally. So that's okay. And that's how you merge a cell. All right. And then it says, as you can see here, it says merging the cells will only preserve the top leftmost value. So that's why the last name went away there. Okay, moving along here to highlight the entire sheet. So let's say I want the same formatting for every cell. You see this little corner up here above the 1. Let me try and zoom in a bit here. Give me a second. Above the 1 and next to the A, this empty white box on the top left corner allows you to select every cell on the spreadsheet. Again, so I went in this box right here. It's underneath this FX button. And now that's going to highlight everything. And here's where I would actually format my sheet, so I don't have to do it over and over and over again. So I want it to be centered. You know, maybe I want a certain font. So those are all different things to be aware of. Finally, you do have the ability here to actually manually resize columns and rows. It doesn't have to be a specific number or size. You know, you can format it however you like. All right. Anything about the basics, Natalia, so far?
Nope. So far, we are good.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to hop over to this spreadsheet now. This spreadsheet was data that was copied. So I copy and pasted data into here that Natalia shared with me. And we're going to go through a few additional functions and conditional formatting that's available in Sheets on this example. So first, we are going to go through filtering. so we can filter data on the spreadsheet. To do so, we can click on the actual column. So I'm going to go on column A. And when I click on column A, again, Sheets is kind of finicky because it does not let you actually zoom in specifically onto a cell. But again, I'm going to click on column A, and this drop-down arrow will show up. From here, I can click sort sheet A to Z, sort sheet Z to A, but you'll notice it's not giving me the option for actually sorting that column, right? That's going to sort my whole sheet based on this one column. So to actually sort the sheet, sort column A, we are going to go to the data tab up here. So where it says data, and now you can see that there's a difference. It says sort sheet by column A to Z, which is this, or I can sort range by column A to Z. So I want to sort the range. Let me explain the difference. The range is only sorting column A. If I do sort sheet by column A, that means all these other columns are going to be linked to the data that it's tied with in column A. I know that's kind of confusing. So see how I did that? I sorted the range. Now in this example, you can see this wouldn't work. So no big deal. What we want to do is undo. We can undo, and that's something that you're going to find on Sheets. It's going to be a lot of trial and error if you're not familiar with it. So we want to undo it, and I'm going to go back to data. Now I'm going to highlight the book names, and now I want to sort this whole sheet by column A. So I want this to be in alphabetical order, and it's going to link everything together. And oops, again, we see that in row 3 here, we want these headers to remain on the top. That's why there are headers, right? So one more time, I'm going to hit undo, and I'm going to show you how to prevent that from happening. So when you hear of freezing a range, that's what we're going to look at right now. So we want to freeze row 1. So that means we want this whole row to be stuck there, right? No matter what filters we run, they're not going to, row 1 is not going to move. So to do that, we have our row 1 selected, and then we go to view, okay? After we go to view, we go down to freeze, and here's where you have the different options. So you could select your whole spreadsheet, but we want to do row 1. I want to freeze the first row. Now you can see there's kind of a little gray bar. You might be able to see there's a little gray bar that shows up under that row. That means that these, the book name, the author, etc., those are all going to stay in the same place no matter how I were to sort and filter this. Okay, going one step further with filtering, I'm going to show you an easier way. Again, we want to highlight this whole sheet. So I'm going to click on this empty white box on the top left. Underneath, the FX little icon there. And when we select all, we're going to go over towards the end of our toolbar where we have these 3 circles or 3 dots. You can see there's a few options we have here, but we're going to focus on this one that says create a filter. So I want to go ahead and create a filter. When I click that icon, you can see now the Google Sheets has automatically created a filter for every single column that I'm looking at. And this will give you the ability to customize your sheet and the formatting the way you want. Now, we're not going to go into each specific scenario in this session. However, it is worth noting just a few of the things available when we talk about filtering. So right now in column A, I can sort by A to Z. If I no longer want to filter by A to Z, I can just go ahead and go back. But let's say I want to identify reading levels, right? I want to go through and see what books are available for certain reading levels. Filtering is one way of doing that. We can go ahead and click on these arrows next to the reading level. and that gives us a drop down. You'll see all these check marks. I might want to filter it so that only specific ones are showing up. So I can hit OK here, and you'll see my sheet just got a lot smaller because I took away certain reading levels. I'm only focusing on the reading levels that I singled out on that filter. If you want to revert the sheet to how it was, right, we want to undo the filter. We go back to this little caret, this little filter button, and then we just hit clear. So we hit clear right there. And when I hit clear, it's going to, it's going to remove everything. Or we can select all, which is how we did have it. And if we select all, that will give us the sheet the way we had it before. So again, it just depends on how you are going about it. Natalia, any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot at you all, so I appreciate your patience as we work through this. All right, so now we want to look at something called conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is awesome. It's one of my favorite tools on here because it's pretty simple. If I can understand it, I feel pretty good about it. So to get to conditional formatting, we're going to go up to where it says Format, this Format button on the top. And if we scroll down, we have a bunch of options here, right? But we want to go to conditional formatting. Now, this is, again, it's setting format rules based on certain conditions that we specify. So for example, on this sheet, one thing I might want to do is format based on the student's reading level. So it says here, apply to range. That means what cells, what are we looking at? So I want to apply this to the column C. So there are two ways we can do this. I could literally type in C1 colon C1000, or however far the cell, however far it goes. And that's one way of selecting that column. The other way would be, and I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to delete that. The other way would be to click these 4 boxes on the right, and it says select data range. From there, we would actually go into our sheet, and we can click what we want selected, right? So I clicked column C, and it automatically did it for me. Now, now we want to go with the formatting rules. And if you're new to this, it's just new language. We'll get familiar with it the more you use it. So it says format cells if, and we're going to go for this specific scenario, we're going to go with is between. So that means if we are between A and D, we want the color to be red. So that means, again, if you have A, B, C, or D in that column, we can format it, and we can format it however we'd like. You can go here and pick a specific color. You see this little paint can? We can pick whatever color we want. If it's a targeted area, I might go with red. And again, you can bold certain things, just like Google Docs, that as far as the formatting goes there. So that's my first conditional formatting rule. Now I want to add another one. I'm going to go ahead and add the same range. I'm going to go format cells if, and I want to go again to is between. I'm going to go E, N. And we could choose our format here. We could choose what color we would like for that. I'm going to go with yellow. And then I can hit done when I'm ready with that. And then finally, I can do the rest of the alphabet. So I'm going to go ahead and format again. And I'm going to go between, I have to kind of sing the alphabet song in my head, O and Z there. And now you can see here that we can identify a little faster what books a student might be interested in based on their reading level. Let's say we set a rule and we want to delete it. I want to get rid of what I just did, right? Or I want to modify it as the year goes on. So I would go to format again, and I would go back to conditional formatting. And here, when we, if I were to hit cancel, excuse me, I can hit add another rule to add something, or I can go ahead and clear the conditional formatting. Oops, excuse me. When this pops up. So again, I click conditional formatting, and I can go ahead and hover over the thing that I want to remove. So if I want to remove O to Z, you just hover over it and then click the garbage can that says remove rule. So that's conditional formatting. The other thing that that other way you could use conditional formatting, I will show you in the next spreadsheet we look at. As far as maybe not using is between, maybe we want to use a different filter.
Joe, can you please show people how to use paint format?
So as far as in the conditional formatting, how to paint it?
No, so like next to the printer, because how to like probably color a one row one color, another row another color for easy viewing. That's a way that we can do it through the through the formatting painting. So like let's say Joe highlight row number 2, right? Then I'm going to pick a color for the background. So go to the bucket for the background color.
Yeah.
And then pick any color. So now that row, so now go to row 4, copy it, go to paint format, and then copy it. Yep. And then you have to make sure that you always click on the paint format if you want to like color the other ones.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. So this paint format button is a useful tool, especially if you have certain sizes. Just like it's not necessarily just for our color backgrounds, right? Let's say this cell is, you know what, I want to go with this size, right, for the rest of my rows. Well, I can go ahead and hit that paint format button. And now I can click on 3, and it's going to automatically change the size to the row above it. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That paint icon is very handy sometimes. Then, as far as the alternating colors go, I did see that in the corner of my eye. Yes, you can by default just set up alternating colors. So, right after conditional formatting, we're going the same route here. It says format. Underneath conditional formatting, we have alternating colors. So that's another way that you can go through and you would select the whole sheet, excuse me. So I would go ahead and select the whole sheet. And then we could select whatever alternating colors we want there. Okay. I'm going to move on to just some basic functions with sheets. Again, for level 1, in the fundamentals training, there's not a wide range of functions that you'll need to be aware of or be able to perform. But let's look at some of the basic ones that maybe like when we're talking about the sum of a column or the average. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead here, and let's say I wanted to find the total. If I were to purchase all of these books for my classroom, what would the total be? So I'm going to click total, or excuse me, I'm going to click in the cell next to it, and I'm going to click total price. Now in this box, on the underneath the $7.99, I want to type in my formula. Now all formulas are going to start with the same thing, and that is an equals. So I can type in equals. Now there are so many different formulas you can use, but we are going to focus on the sum for this one. So now we type in equals, and then I'm going to type in sum. As you can see, Google gives you different options, right, based on the letters that you type in. I want to just do sum. Then it automatically adds a parenthesis. Now it's saying, all right, what do we want to find the sum of? Well, we want to find the sum of E2, which is this first price, right, this first book. We want to find E2 all the way down to E16. That's going to be our sum. So we're going to do E2 to E16. And when I'm finished with the cells that I want to identify, I close the parenthesis and I can hit enter. Now that gives me the sum of column E, column E. So again, every formula you're going to type in with equals. Equals is always the first step. Now let's just say I wanted to find the average price for this example. I'm going to do one more. So I'm going to go ahead here. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and type in average price in this box. Now, we are going to go equals average. And then it'll tell you right here, numerical average value in a data set. And again, I'm going to use the same range. So I'm going to go E2 to E16. Now, could you also manually go through and highlight all the cells that you want to select for a formula? Absolutely. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go ahead and type in manually. So E2 to E16. And now the average price of these books comes out to $6.11. The main thing here is just to be aware of, how to start a formula, right? And identifying that range. So those are the two that I wanted to cover as far as sheets go in this session. Natalia, how are we doing?
We are doing good. Remember, guys, that we are trying to cover just the specific task, not the specific, but only the basic functions that you are going to be needed for certification level 1. Any additional questions, a little more advanced questions, please email us, email Joe and I, and we will be more than happy to answer those questions. We do not want to go over extra questions in the sense that we do not want to confuse people. Remember that here we have different levels of people. We have people who have used Sheets before and people who have never used Sheets. So that's the reason I'm trying to not answer questions that may confuse other people or may not be part of the goal that we have today. So we will be happy to email you back if you have questions additionally about Sheets. But for right now, let's just stay with the basics for the certification. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, no, thank you. Good point. Now, just to go through the main things on this sheet one last time, I saw a question about getting those filter options. So to do that, to get to be able to filter each column, if we want to select our entire spreadsheet, we click this blank white box on the top left corner, and then we go to these 3 dots. So our entire spreadsheet is selected. We go to these 3 dots. We hit the Create a Filter button. That will automatically give you these filtering options. And again, it's probably worth playing around with after this session. Not just for level 1. I want to point that out here. This is also, I find, incredibly useful when looking at your classroom data, and being able to use these filtering options really can enhance, right, how you respond to certain students and what interventions you provide there. Okay.
Joe,
yes, go ahead.
One last thing before we probably keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
Could you show really quick how to do the total price once again?
Yep, you read my mind, Natalia. All right. So to get to the total price, right, to get to the total, to the sum of a group of numbers, we type in the cell, right? It does not, let me point out, it does not have to be underneath this in column A. We can go ahead over here and I can put the total price here. The only thing that does matter is how we type out the formula. So I'm going to go ahead in this box and type in equals. And then after the first equal sign, I want to put sum. and then you open parenthesis. And then we want to identify our range. So again, we decided it was E2. So E2, it's like battleship, to E16. E2 to E16. When you're done with that, you close the parenthesis, and it will give you the sum. Now, if something was wrong, let's say I went to let me go to a different one. Let me say E2, and I'm going to go to F17. See, that still works. That did not give me the error I wanted, but you might get a little error box that says with a hashtag and then says REF. That means that there's something, there it is. That means that there's something wrong with the formula. No big deal. We just click and we have to figure out what it was. Oh, and here it is. I didn't label my range correctly. So I would just have to go through and change that. Okay. And sorry, are we good to move on to the next spreadsheet? Or go ahead.
1 second. I got a lot of questions at once, so I'm trying to like go through it. So Amy is asking, and I think I'm not sure very well. So Amy, Ami, if you can just wait until the end and answer that question again, just because Joe showed how to do the average and sum. So I don't know if it's something different. So at the end, we will go back to the question.
Yeah, again, there are a lot of different tangents we can go on with Sheets. I mean, we can we could do like a 6-hour training, right, on what's available and based on people's familiarity with the application. But again, we're focusing more on the fundamental skills training. Yes.
Correct. This is fundamentals. So if you want to deeper onto formulas, you're gonna need to go to the training center for that. Because we don't have the time to do it.
Okay. Rumor has it you are correct, Carrie. That is what we're going to move on next. So we are going to look at inserting a graph based on data that we have. So I'm going to head 1 tab over. Now I had these pre-created before this session, but let's take a look here. So you can see I had some data put in on this spreadsheet. Don't worry. The staff emails are obviously fake and the student names are not real. And I inserted a chart based on the data. Let's see how we can go ahead and do this. We're going to walk through that process. So again, let me zoom in for a minute here. Now, this specific student data would be behavioral interventions, right? If we're trying to document disruptions, defines, like what target behaviors are we trying to address in the classroom? And this is one way to track the frequency of each behavior. So the first thing that we can do is we can go through and do conditional formatting. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but we go to Format again, and then we go to Conditional Formatting. Again, we want to select the range that we're looking for. So for this specific example that I'm talking about, my range, I want it to be column F. So I want it to be column F. And I'm going to hit OK. Now it says Format Cells. Again, tons of options. I want to do text is exactly. And then I'm going to type in electronics. And just hit done. So this is one way, again, of using that conditional formatting and seeing if getting a quick look to see if something is more frequent than a different behavior. But let's go and look at something at the actual chart, right? We want to get a visual. So we're going to go to Insert. And when we go to Insert, we have a few options. But again, for this session, we're just going to look at Chart. So I hit Insert and then Chart. Now, the chart automatically pops up above all the other columns and all the other data. And we have a few options that we can choose from. Now, Sheets does a nice job of predicting what kind of chart you want, right? So it's saying, all right, probably for this data, you probably want to use a pie chart or a column chart. I'm going to go with a pie chart. And then once we select the pie chart, this is when we can go through and select the different options. Now, again, I do want to stress with this, it's definitely worth playing around with. I still get a little tricked up sometimes depending on the chart I'm trying to create because it's going to be different and unique to each spreadsheet. But for this, I want to see something different. I don't need to see the names of these fake students because look, they're all at 14.4%, right? They're all equally, they're behaving inappropriately at the same rate. So I want to change what I'm looking at here. So instead, we can go ahead, oops, excuse me here. All right. We can go ahead here and, oh, give me 1 second. I'm going to keep row 1 as headers. And I'm going to go with this pie chart. Okay. So the label, you can see here, the label is the student's name. So right now it's pulling from from row C. I don't want that to be the label. I want the label to be the reason for intervention. So now when I click the reason for intervention, you see how the labels change? I can zoom in a little bit more. Now my chart is showing me, okay, my biggest issue with my classroom management, or the thing I need to address, I should say, would be electronics in the classroom. So you can go ahead and with this chart, it gives you the ability to manipulate and configure the parameters based on what you are looking to identify. If you wanted to add a value, that might be like to make a more complicated pie chart, you could do that. But again, I just don't want to throw too much out there. Now, there's the setup tab, and then there's the customize tab. The customize tab is more about the titling of the axes, right? And how our chart actually looks, like the color, the font, and all that type of stuff. If we want to go ahead and make it nice and cool with 3D, we can do that in the customization section. And then again, with the titles and all that, I would want to change the title of this chart, right? Because this isn't a count of students' name, it's a count of behaviors. So we can go ahead and do behavior frequency. I'm okay with that for now. So then that's how you change the title of your charts. I'm going to go back to setup. I'm going to X this out. Now, the next thing is, all right, how do we get this so it's not blocking our data, right? Or, I don't want it all the way over here. I want to really be able to look at this because depending on how you use Sheets, you might have a ton of information that's compiled, right? You might have 190 students. Well, one thing we can do is on this chart, we have these 3 little circles on the top right, and we can go ahead and move the chart to its own sheet. So again, I click these 3 circles, and I'm going to go ahead and move that to its own sheet.
Joe, can I bump into here for a second?
Please do.
Thank you. Just to make sure that the name of the application is Google Sheets, but technically what we are working with is a workbook. So this workbook has different sheets inside of that workbook. So when Joe moved that graph, he's not moving it away to a different sheet, kind of like in a document when you create a new document. If you look at it, his arrow is on the bottom, showing that each one of those tabs is a different sheet. So those sheets are part of a workbook. So the name of the program is Google Sheets, but we are working in one workbook that creates different sheets.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. Yep. So those will be compiled on the bottom. You could rename, you could click that arrow, that little drop-down arrow if you did want to rename it, maybe put behavior chart, etc. Now, I'm going to head right back here. And someone asked, can you do a chart with an X and a Y axis? Absolutely. Again, I'm not going to go over each one specifically in this session, but we could go ahead, go something like that, and it'll give us the count of student names and etc. I mean, there's just tons of customization options there. Okay, that's what I have for Sheets. Anything else you want to throw in there, Natalia, before we head over to Keep?
One last thing is a way that we can actually make the rows all the same size.
Yep.
If we
So,
wanna,
good question. So to make the rows the same size, we can go ahead and click on, let's say I want to click on number 2, right? That's my first actual row of data. I can right click on row 2 and I can hit resize row. Now I can go ahead and either select fit to data, or I can select a specific height. Let's say I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and do a little larger, 35. Then I can hit OK. Now, that's only for chart 2, row 2. We can go through, right, the entire, we can go all the way down, hold the shift button, and click on that last row, and right click, and then we could do resize again, right, resize rows, and we could do 35. That's the one option, is to, again, to hold the shift button and select the rows, or you could go ahead and use that paintbrush to paint to format it that way. There are 2 ways of going about that. Okay, 8:42. So I am going to move on to Google Keep at this point. Again, there's a little bit more we could go into with Sheets, but these are the essential skills when we talk about level 1. All right, Google Keep, something that looks like this. You might not have been here before. So to get to Google Keep, I'm going to head back to ClassLink. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. All right. Just like all the other Google applications we've covered, Google Keep is also in this little box, right? Or you could find it using the waffle in your email. It's, again, personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and click on Google Keep. Google Keep is a great way of keeping little notes, like kind of a notepad, if you will. So now that Google Keep is loaded, the first thing we want to look at is just how to create a note, right? Let's start with that. So here it says take a note. I simply click on this. We have the option to make a title. Now, as far as the notes go, it can be something as simple as, right, a little note to ourselves. This is an example of a note on Keep. Or we can get a little fancier with it. There's a few options we have within Keep. The first is to actually make a checkbox. That's the first thing I'm going to cover. To do that, we click on these little 3 circles on the bottom that say More. And you can see we have a bunch of options. Again, I'm going to go over checkboxes first because that's my favorite. So that's why we're doing that. So show checkboxes. Now, when we do checkboxes, it's essentially, I mean, whether you want to call it a shopping list or a to-do list, we can go ahead and list items that we have to do. So grade 3A papers, right? Or science lesson, blah, blah, blah. We can continue and actually create a checklist where we can go through, and once those items are complete, we could check them off. That's one option we have. Again, I'm going to go ahead and click on these 3 circles again, and I want to do hide checkboxes. So let's say we don't need a list necessarily for what we're doing. Those 3 circles, you can see we have a few other options. We have add a label, add a drawing, or copy to Google Docs. I'm going to go next to add a drawing. So if I want to add a drawing, it takes me to this page, right? I have the option here to put some lined paper down, put some graph paper on here, or dots. Again, it's whatever, it depends on what you teach or how you would use it. But I'm going to go with lines, right? Now you have the marker, you have a highlighter, and you have a pen. I'm going to go with this pen. You could choose the size of the ink. And this is something where you could use your stylus, your HP stylus, if you still have that, or just your touch screen to go through and make any notes that you want on here. I don't know why, but I was going ahead and just writing down my name. Why not? So that's something you can do on this tab. That's beneficial, especially if if you want to make a note as a math teacher. It's something that you could share out and annotate using graph paper. All right, I'm going to hop back into this note. Go ahead, Natalia.
Sorry, remember that all Google products are interactive with each other. So that's the reason Keep give you that opportunity. Keep is a note-taking application that will allow you to use on everything and on the go. I know that for the purpose of our session today, you need to utilize Keep and learn how to use it on web-based. But personal choice, I use my Keep more in my personal device on my smartphone for my personal life a lot. So FYI.
Yes, and while we're talking about the image notes, so when I click those 3 circles and it said add drawing, if you're using the Keep application on your phone, you can actually take a picture through your camera, right? And then add a note to that as well. So that's an additional feature there. All right, now let's get to I think what adds even more value to Keep, and that is the combination of labels, coloring, and the sharing ability. First, we are going to look at colors. So let's just say I want to do Tech Integrator checklist. Well, maybe I have a system where every note that has to do with tech integration could be blue, right? You can change the colors however frequently, however often you want. There are a lot of different extensions out there too to even enhance the Google Keep colors and your note taking. Next up is the ability to add labels to your Google Keep notes. To add a label, we first need to create a label. So you'll see here on the left side, I do already have some created, but we can go down to where it says edit labels. We right click on that. Okay, excuse me. So I went on the left side here and I clicked on edit labels. Now we can type in whatever label title we want to go with. Once we enter that in, you can just hit the enter button or the check mark and it will appear along with the rest of your other labels. You can always go back and delete labels, rename them. Again, nothing set in stone. So now this Tech Integrator checklist, I want to add a label to it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit these 3 circles and I'm going to hit add label. And my label is this example for the session on May 20th. Now I'm going to close it. And on the left side here, we're going to go back to the label titles. And if I click on example for the session on May 20th, it will actually just filter down those notes specifically assigned, again, to that label. And then finally, we have the ability to share and collaborate on Google Keep notes. So to give you an example, another integrator I work with, one of our middle school tech integrators, Todd Ranke, shared this Keep note with me, right? He put in a nice, who doesn't love an office meme, and then some notes for us to work on. To add collaborators to a Google Keep note, you simply click this collaborator button on the bottom toolbar. We hit collaborator, and then we could type in the person that we want to share this with. So I can go ahead and type in Natalia, and we can hit save. And now she will be an added collaborator on this Google Keep note. Anything else, Natalia, on Keep that you think we should cover?
Can we cover the picture text, please?
On the picture text, go ahead. Yeah, you want to walk me through that?
Yes. So what you do is grab an image. So go find an image that have text, even the one that Todd shared with you.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead. Yep, I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do 2 ways. All right, I'm gonna save the image and I'm gonna copy it. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So where are you? Where is the note?
All right. So
Got it.
in a blank note.
Fantastic. Thank you right there. So let's add the image.
So to add the image, like Natalia was saying, we click this little image, that universal add image button. And you can locate it based on wherever you had saved that image. So I can go ahead here and I can click on the image that I want on this Google Keep note.
Okay, fantastic. Then I'm gonna go to my 3 dots, I believe,
Yeah.
and grab image text. So as you can see, it will grab whatever text is on the image.
And, you know, this specific image that I did choose, it might not be the best example, but thank you, Natalia, for bringing that up. The adding an image can be incredibly useful, especially when you do want to pull text from an image down into that note. It will give you that text format. It automatically identifies the text in this picture. And the reason let me do it again. The reason this R is here is just because it identified this our logo as an R. That was the only hiccup with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say I no longer need this note, right? I don't want this to show up on my Google Keep anymore. Right next to the add image is this archive button. So we can go ahead and click archive, and just like archiving a classroom, archiving in a class in Google Classroom, it will not appear on our Keep homepage. Yes, thank you. The image is definitely worth noting. And then when we talk about adding collaborators, I am going to hop back really quickly. Natalia brought up a good point before this session. If you haven't shared a document recently, whether it's a Google Doc or a sheet or a form, the sharing format, the view, looks a little different than it did previously, than how we were used to the past few years. The settings and all that are still the same, right? It just looks different. So to share it with a specific person, you could still go in here and add that person and select their permissions, right? But I think the main difference is down here where it says get link. See, right now by default, it's anyone at RUSD with this link can view. Depending, again, if it's especially if it's an IEP document, something like that, where you might really want to limit who can view this document, we can go ahead and hit change. And now we have the ability to go ahead and pick restricted, which would mean no one can access it unless we specifically share it with them. Those within the district with the link, and anyone with the link. So those are the few options we have there. But again, as far as viewers, editors, commenters, all that is the same. It's just a different look in our Google applications.
Yeah, so we want to bring that to your attention because it had changed in the last probably month, the way that sharing button looked. So it's something that people may be familiar or not. Joe, can you go back to Keep as well?
Absolutely.
And then actually set a reminder. Like if you see for that one in session, you will see right there.
Yeah, I'm going to go on this one. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. So there is the Remind Me button here, which I should probably use more often. This Remind Me button is a nice way to get a notification at a specific time, especially if it's something that needs to be done by Friday, right, or by next week. I can go ahead and add a reminder to this note. All right. Any questions as far as Keep goes? Does it remind you or all the collaborators? So the reminder will just remind you. Good question. It does not remind all the collaborators.
So how's Keep different from TAS? That's a really good question. So TAS is kind of like a list, and it doesn't allow you to add much things or like all the extra goodies that Keep has. Like in Keep, you can add the colors, the picture, the drawing. The task is only kind of like a list of things. You can tag links, but it won't be as visual as this one.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, and if we're not going to go over tasks specifically in this session again, because we don't want to hop back between Gmail and Calendar. But yes, tasks are more rudimentary, where Keep gives you a lot more customization. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you. And some of the questions that you guys have about like in interaction with the other applications, the other sessions may be covering that. So if you are going to a calendar session, that session may be covering the integration with Keep. If you're going to the Gmail session, that may cover the integration with Keep. But keep in mind that these sessions are, the goal is to actually cover the bases for you guys to become a level 1 certified. So a lot of those advanced settings, probably we won't go over those at this moment.
Yeah.
Okay?
So if anyone wants to hang around and ask questions, Natalia and I will be happy to stay here and answer those. But at this point, we've met everything we need to discuss. So we really, really appreciate you joining us this morning. Now, Natalia, I did see a question in there about what extension for the Keep, for customizing your Keep. So yeah. My personal preference, it's called category tabs for Google Keep. So if you just search category tabs for Google Keep in Google, that's the extension that I prefer. And I disabled it for this training session, but I generally have that one on.
Mm-hmm. That's an extra cherry on the top that Joe's giving you guys. That's not something that you need to know for the certification. Yep.
Anything else, right. Natalia? Any other questions I haven't seen?
Not related to the certification. Like I say, if you can you change the time on the reminder? That's maybe one.
Sure. So yep, you can by clicking on that note with the reminder on it. If we go over and hover over the reminder, I can go ahead and click on it, and it says 7:30 here. I can go ahead and just do custom, and then I could type in, some obscure hour, right? And we can go ahead and do that. And you can set it to repeat if it's something that's a weekly task.
Again, thank you so much, all of you, for coming to this session. We have about 5 more minutes if you guys have any extra questions. If you guys can please, we will send you a task for you to practice with this. So don't worry. And we're also going to send you the video so you actually can go on your own time. Joe, I need Amy to please at this moment to unmute her microphone and trying to explain me what was her question, because I'm not sure if that's if I understand it or if that's part of certification level 1.
Hi,
Amy.
So my question was so when we're doing the spreadsheet, so you guys talked about from like top to bottom of figuring out the sum, and sometimes on the spreadsheet they might have it like in a row, like, can you tell me the average in row A or row B? Is that the same way that you did the, just adding all of it, from top to bottom? Would we just do it the same way for the row? And can we do it all, let's say there's 30 rows and they want us to find the average of each row. Do we have to do it individually, or is there a way to do it all to the right side instead of going down? Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. So yeah, that is something that we could do. I don't know if I have enough. Let me see if I have it on this. So on the examples I have up right now, let me show you. Let me answer that question for you. Okay. And again, just to be clear for anyone that's still here, this is not a level 1 skills task or training. It's not any of that. This is going to be a little bit of a deeper dive. So it's a good question. So let's say we wanted to average out columns B, C, D, and E, but we don't want to type in over and over again. One thing we could do is we could just type in here equals, right? Average. And now I'm going to go, what was it? E2 to E16. Okay. Now, if on the bottom right corner of the cell is this little square, if we hover over that, it kind of gives me like a pinpoint marker, and I can drag that over to the next cell, and it goes through, and you can see here, it copied that formula. The only thing it changed was it recognized the pattern. So it changed the selection from D. So again, if there was another set of numbers in column C, we could go ahead and continue to drag it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Of course, that's actually what I did on this example.
Right.
That's how I did that. I selected a pattern, and then you could just drag it down.